Hi everybody, and welcome to my video, how to make a deficit work for you. I have been trying to get this right for some time, a few days at least, having a lot of different technical issues, mainly the issue being the person trying to figure it out, which would be me. I would call myself the operator issues. Anyway, here we are. There's about 6 or 7 different topics I want to cover within this video. Each one I will do separately, so you can skip ahead if you want to. I will put where each topic is in the description underneath this video. So the first topic that I'm going to cover is mindset. Mindset when you're about to dive into a deficit is very important. There's so many different things to consider, and as I did discuss in my previous video to you guys, some of the mindset issues are completely individual to the person. So I'm just going to cover a couple of different kind of generic big picture sort of things. The first one is that I want you to remove any deadlines when you're going into a calorie deficit. So if you were going into a deficit with a holiday, a vacation, or a wedding or something like that in mind, I want you to remove the deadline. It's not only super unhealthy mentally, but it's also not great for a longevity perspective. So what happens after said deadline is over? Do you go back to old ways? Do you eat normally again? What's your plan? So by removing deadlines, I think you have a better chance of instilling a better, bigger picture plan that is going to suit your whole life, a year, 2 years onwards from now, rather than just that occasion that's going to come and go very quickly in a few months' time. So remove any deadlines. This is a really big piece of the puzzle. Once people do remove those deadlines, I know it's a very common thing to want to lose weight for a vacation, for example. It's just once you remove that pressure, the vacation becomes more enjoyable, and it actually improves your health and your whole outlook and your relationship with food and exercise and everything like that. So just remove those altogether. However, I do want you to have some sort of timeline in place. So what I mean by that is I don't want you to be in a deficit forever. So if you have a lot of weight to lose, you could be in, and I mean a lot by over 50 pounds, over 30 kilos sort of a situation. I want you to potentially, well, you could potentially be in the deficit for 6 months or so, and that would be okay. If you have less weight to lose, really just stick to 3 or 4 months. You shouldn't be able to do much longer than that anyway. You should be mentally and physically pretty exhausted of the deficit. So 3 or 4 months, put a time frame on it. Don't put a weight goal, even though you might have a weight goal in your head. Save that for later. Put a time frame on it. Get in, do it seriously, stick to that timeline, and then slowly get yourself back out of it. You may not reach your weight goal in this time frame, and that is okay. Get out, have your break and maintenance, restore your hormones, restore your body back to homeostasis, feel good for a little period of time. No, you're not going to regain all of the weight. You're just going to get to your maintenance point. And then if you've got more to lose, then go back into the deficit again because you know what to do. Do it for another 3, 4 months and then repeat as necessary. But don't just live in that deficit mindset, waiting, pushing until you reach that goal, that weight goal, because you could drive yourself into the ground. A lot of people ruin their metabolisms, their balance within their bodies, their hormones, everything can go completely out of whack if you do that. So that is number 2, set yourself a time limit for this. And please remember that it's going to take months, not weeks. So with under mindset comes expectations and managing your expectations. I don't want you thinking that in 3, 4, 5 weeks, you're going to be like looking at your results thinking, oh my gosh, look at me. It's going to take months. So take the progress photos. Make sure you have one from the start. You won't want to take the photo, but take the photo. Take them as you go, every couple of weeks, every month, whatever it may be. And remember that it's going to take months, not weeks. So definitely exercise some patience with that one. Next thing, sustainability. Under mindset, I want you to consider how you're going to approach the deficit. And the number one thing I want you to consider with this is how can you make it sustainable? Sustainable is the only way when it comes to a calorie deficit. If it's not sustainable, you're not going to last the distance and you're not going to get the results that you want. So how can we make it sustainable? That, I guess, would be the number one question. Few different things. So number one, don't undershoot your calories. If you undershoot your calories and you go super low, you're not going to last 12 weeks on that. You're going to hate it. You might binge eat on the weekend. You might be more susceptible to the yo-yo cycle. Please don't undershoot your calories. Number two, don't overdo the exercise. This works just the same as undershooting your calories. If you overdo the exercise, you may as well be undershooting your calories. You're not eating enough for your activity level. So don't overdo the exercise. It can make it extremely hard to stick to that calorie deficit due to hunger and biofeedback. Your body is going to be looking for energy. So don't overdo the exercise. Include foods that you enjoy, include foods that you like. Don't go into this whole diet food situation where you only have certain foods such as chicken breast and broccoli for the whole time. Include foods that you normally would eat or that you would like or that you would look forward to. If you're not looking forward to the foods you're eating, then you're not going to last 12 to 16 weeks doing that. And make your foods voluminous and filling. So volume usually comes from things like vegetables and fruit and even rice and pastas. I know that they can be a little bit more calorie heavy, but they keep you full. Make sure you include protein at every meal. Protein takes longer to digest, so it actually keeps you fuller for longer. So it's got to increase satiety. And also increase a little, if you can include a little bit of fat at every meal, that takes longer to digest as well. So if you can include fats, proteins, and carbs at every meal, your three macros, you're hitting a really good balance, I guess, with that meal in terms of keeping you full for a long period of time. The other thing to consider is fiber. Fiber in your meals, try to hit your daily fiber intake. That keeps you fuller for longer as well, just having fiber in your diet. The other thing is obviously hydration. Drink a lot of water, keep yourself hydrated. Next thing with the mindset topic, is take it seriously. I don't mean take it seriously and be serious and boring about it. I mean, still enjoy all of the foods that you usually like, but I mean, take it seriously as in stick to your calorie target, track your foods, and don't drag it out. The more seriously you take it, the more you're tracking your foods and sticking to your deficit, sticking to your calories, the quicker you can get in and get out of this deficit. And the quicker and the less likely that you'll have to come back to it and do it for all over again. If you don't take it seriously, you're more at risk of dragging it out, and then you're kind of at risk of being in that deficit mentality for way too long, and it's not a fun place to be. Take it seriously. People don't like tracking calories. No one wants to track their food in MyFitnessPal every day, but if you can do this as accurately as possible, weigh everything you can, do it properly, then you're less likely to have to drag this out and continue this cycle of thinking about weight loss forever. So that is my other tip, is just don't drag it out. Take it seriously, get in and get out. Topic number 2, calculating your calories. So I did touch on this just before, but the number one thing that I want you to keep in mind is not to undershoot your calories. So there are lots of hurdles that you will come across with undershooting your calories. A lot of people want to go low because they want results quickly. What can happen if you do this is you could come back to that cycle of binge eating and yo-yoing. When you're really low on calories, I've talked about this before, but your body has this set point. It's called homeostasis. So if you're not getting enough calories for the level of energy that you're expending every day, your body is going to look for it, and this can come across as hunger. You're just going to look for high calorie foods. Sometimes this is too much for our willpower to withstand, and we will give in and we will binge eat. We'll eat too many calories. We'll yo-yo. If you are susceptible to the all or nothing thinking, you might go completely off the bandwagon at this point. So don't risk it. Just keep your deficit mild, really mild. You want to try to lose calories off the highest. You want to try to lose weight off the highest possible calories. This way, you're also minimizing the chances that you're going to lose majority or predominantly muscle and fluid, which can happen on super low calorie diets. So we definitely don't want to do that. Muscle is a metabolically active tissue. It takes calories to maintain that muscle. So you definitely want to keep that, especially as you're reaching perimenopause and menopause. It becomes a really important tissue. And a lot of the advice to people going through this stage is to do strength work, resistance work, increase your muscle mass, and really help your metabolism stay stoked and fired. The next thing that you can experience if you try to go too low is negative biofeedback. So that looks like, as I was talking about with homeostasis, your body is not in homeostasis when you're in a calorie deficit. It's not happy with you, and you could get mood swings, irritability, poor sleep. Your hair can fall out. Energy levels are obviously super low. Stress, it's extremely stressful. If you go too low on calories, all of this sort of stuff can really be exacerbated and can make it super unpleasant for you as you experience fat loss. And you're not going to last 12 weeks if you're going like that. So once again, it comes back to sustainability and not going too low. Also, too low on calories, and you're more likely to experience rebound weight gain once you finish. It's going to make it harder for you to reverse back out of the deficit. What you want to do is you want to start higher end in your deficit. Even if you don't know what higher end is, just take a guess. But if you are not sure where to start a little bit higher, on the higher end than what you think. And then if you're not getting results after a week or two, you can just shave 50 calories off a day. It's really easy, but that's going to be harder for you if you're on the lower end and you're seeing what the weight come off quite quickly. You're probably going to quite like that, but you're going to get 2 or 3 weeks in and you're going to be struggling mentally and physically. It's going to be really hard for you, and then you're kind of stuck. You're at the bottom level. You don't know where else to go. You're not going to want to increase your calories because psychologically that's going to mess you up a little bit. So definitely just try to start higher end. Reversing out of a deficit to get back into maintenance is a lot easier when you don't have as far to go. It also just makes it more enjoyable for you in general. The deficit will be enjoyable. You'll be able to eat more treats. You'll be able to socialize more. You'll be able to have an extra glass of wine on the weekends. And yeah, it just makes life more pleasant for that 12 to 16 weeks, which is a long period of time if you are on slightly higher calories. You'll still reach your goal, but it will just be a more enjoyable experience. And you'll probably, in the scheme of things, more likely to reach your goal if you're on higher calories, doing this on high calories. You are definitely less likely to reach your goal if you're doing it on super low calories. You will struggle to get there. And as I said, you won't be able to go the distance and you might get weight rebound. So it's just not worth it. So when it comes to doing the calorie calculating, you can have a look at the calculator on my website, or you can just search any old calorie calculator really, and you won't know where to start. These are based on formulas, old formulas that have been well researched, and generally speaking, they're pretty accurate. But everyone is individual and it's going to differ for everyone. Your activity level is going to change from day to day. Some days you might be active, some days you might be sedentary. So you're just going to have to take a guess when it comes to activity level. As an average over the week, what's your activity level? Are you getting less than 5,000 steps a day, not exercising and sitting at a desk all day? If so, you're the very bottom level activity level. Calculate it based on that. But if you have an active job, you're a nurse, and you're exercising, say, 4 or 5 times a week, working out, you are not going to be on that bottom level. You're probably going to be moderate to high level exercise. Please don't underestimate your activity level. Again, coming back to the sustainability thing, go higher where possible. If you're not sure, go higher. You can always reduce. And also remember that this is a range. So as I said, it's going to be a range for your deficit, for your maintenance. Everything is a range. Your body doesn't just stay stagnant every single day and burn exactly the same number of calories every single day. Some days you might be more active than other days. Some days you may be more stressed than other days. You might get worse sleep some days. There's so many different factors. So just take a guess and stick to it. If you don't stick to it and you keep changing your calorie target around, you're never going to know what your deficit calories are and what works for you. So just start, and it's going to make it easier to adjust if you stick to that for at least 2 weeks. If your activity does increase or decrease whilst you're in the deficit, then yeah, you should recalculate your calories. Likewise, if your body weight increases or decreases. If you become a smaller person, if you have lost 10 pounds, then you probably need to recalculate your calorie deficit, because now it's probably lower. You're a smaller person, you're taking less energy to operate. So you might need to recalculate your calories as you go. All right, let's talk about exercise now. So the first thing I really want to emphasize is that exercise is not necessary for fat loss. You do not need to exercise. If you're already not exercising and you want to lose some fat, I don't really recommend going and starting an exercise program whilst you're trying to learn how to track calories and eat less calories and maintain a calorie deficit via food. I don't recommend doing both at the same time. I do recommend getting extra movement in as you start your calorie deficit, but I don't recommend starting an exercise program at the same time as you're trying to track your calories for the first time. So it's not necessary to exercise. You don't need to exercise. As I said just before, when you're calculating your calories, you will calculate them based off of your activity level. So if you're not exercising, then calculate that based off the lowest activity level. Okay, and then just get your calories under control, track in MyFitnessPal, work out what kind of foods work for you, start planning meals, get your food under control. This is going to be the biggest piece of the puzzle. Once you have that food under control, then if you really want to, start an exercise program, start it a few times a week, don't go every day, and start with it. Keep in mind that you're not doing it to burn calories. You're doing it for health reasons, such as cardiovascular health and to increase your muscle mass, which is super important, especially for women. So do it for other reasons, because as I said earlier, if you do then go and implement this exercise program, you are going to need to recalculate your calorie deficit and you're going to be needing to eat more calories. Otherwise, your deficit just became a whole lot bigger and it's going to be really unpleasant for you further down the track. So don't do it to burn calories. Do it for other reasons. The other thing I would say as a big piece of this movement and exercise puzzle is to increase your NEAT. Food intake is number one. And then second thing behind that is NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is just your daily movement. We as humans do not move enough anymore. We don't. We sit down all day. We sit on the couch. We're watching TV shows. There are 1,000 different TV shows we can watch. We're on our computers. We're sitting in our cars. We don't move enough. Find ways to move more. Even if you need to initially set some alarms to get yourself up off the couch, get up off your desk and go for some laps, just start figuring out ways to move more. One way to do this is to start with the step goal. So you can start with a 10,000 step goal, 10,000 a day step goal, and go from there. If you can't get 10,000, it's completely impossible, then start at 7,000 or 8,000. More is better than what you're doing at the moment. Obviously, if you're getting up above 15,000, then your activity level is getting up into the next tier. You're not so much sedentary anymore. Now you're kind of lightly active. So make sure you make that adjustment. As I said, don't exercise to burn calories. Exercise for health reasons. If you're exercising, please don't look at your watches and don't look at the calories that you've burnt on your watch. Don't look at the calories that you've burnt on your watch at the end of the day. They are completely inaccurate. They're notoriously inaccurate. They've been proven to be inaccurate. Don't look at them. Also, just a bad habit to get into. Yes, use it as an average for steps. I mean, it's not going to be completely accurate. I've hit my step goal before standing in the kitchen, but they give you a good idea of how much movement you get, and it's a good benchmark to go off. The other thing to remember is that if you do exercise too much, you are going to be more susceptible to burnout, hunger, and slower metabolism look further down the track. I am an actual classic example of this. So back in the day, I would completely over-exercise. I was probably eating in way too low for my activity level. I would work out 5 or 6 times a week, including running, and I was working as a nurse, so a highly active job plus all of that, and I was definitely not eating enough, and I ended up with an underactive thyroid, which is basically the the epicenter of your body for your metabolism. So don't do what I did. Don't overdo the exercise. Adjust your calories if you are going to implement exercise. But you need to then keep in mind, if you are implementing this exercise, when you are ready to get out of this fat loss stage, are you okay with still doing that exercise? If the answer is no, and you don't want to continue doing that exercise, don't start it. Question why you're starting it in the first place. If it is just to lose fat, don't do it, because you're going to have to keep doing it. Otherwise, as soon as you stop doing that exercise, you're probably more likely to regain all of that weight again. That's why I always recommend walking. Walking you can do forever. Walking is so good for you, especially as we age. It's great for your mobility and your independence. And I always recommend strength training to females. It's not highly taxing. It doesn't take that much mental fortitude to go into the gym to lift some weight. However, it does when you're going into some stupid sweat class. I used to do F45, and I cannot believe I used to do that at 5 or 6 a.m. on an empty stomach. Like, my stress levels were through the roof, and it was just not a good combo. So other than the other benefits of strength training, always recommend strength training. You can do that forever, and it's a really good, solid thing to do. And walking, so easy. So that is exercise. Planning. Okay, let's talk about planning. So I highly recommend planning. I think it's a really good indicator as if you're going to be successful or not in your deficit. If you're not planning, you're winging it from day to day, you're much more likely to be looking for foods that aren't going to align with your calorie deficit. You might end up being over on your calories for the day. You might end up eating all of your calories before lunch, and you've got nothing left for the rest of the day. So just plan. Make sure you plan everything. Create the meals in MyFitnessPal. To do this, you can go into your diary settings for the day, go to add food, and then it's up the top, my meals, and then create a meal. If you have foods that you like to have regularly, then create it as a meal. And then every time you're planning in MyFitnessPal, all you have to do is add the meal. And you can adjust the quantities as you go. So that makes it super easy. Anything to make it quick and easy, I highly recommend. So creating meals that you're going to eat regularly is a big one. Have protein on hand. I always make sure I have a big thing of slow cooked shredded chicken. Super easy to make. And then we've got it for wraps. If I'm a little bit low on protein for the day, I'll have it for an afternoon snack or put it in an omelette. Have foods that you plan on hand. It sounds pretty obvious, but if you have planned all of your food in MyFitnessPal and you're missing some of the ingredients, then that's going to cause an issue for you the next day. When you're in a calorie deficit, sometimes you just don't have the mental fortitude to go to the shops, get exactly what you need, and come home and prepare it. You might get to the shops and you want it, and you see too many temptations, and then you're completely off the rails. So just try and make sure you have everything that you plan on hand, ready to go. Plan out and prepare what you can for the day. It makes it a lot quicker and easier. Remove any temptations from the house. If there are some foods that your willpower cannot withstand, it's just not strong enough yet, remove it from the house. Throw it in the trash, throw it in the bin, give it to your partner to go hide, or put it somewhere that is more than 10 seconds out of your reach, so that by the time you go and get it, you don't actually want it anymore. And then last thing to consider to plan is how you're going to get your movement in the next day. If you're not specifically doing a workout, then how are you going to move? For example, if you have a workshop all day, 8 till 6, how are you going to get 10,000 steps tomorrow? That's going to be really hard. So do you need to get up half an hour earlier in the morning to go for a walk? Is there going to be a lunch break, an afternoon tea break where you can go and do some walking? Just plan, try and figure out how you're going to get your movement in for that day. The next topic that we're going to talk about is what to eat. Make sure that is actually on. All right, next topic, what to eat. So here you might think, she's going to tell me what to eat now. Excellent. I'm not going to tell you what to eat. I have an issue with programs that give you a meal plan. I think you learn nothing. I mean, you learn something. Don't get me wrong. You learn what maybe a healthy meal looks like. You learn portions. You learn definitely how to structure certain meals. But what do you do once you come out of that program? and you've got to create your meals yourself. You haven't really learned how to do that. So this whole process is, I know it can be a bit hard to start out with, and it can be mentally like, what am I going to eat? But you just need to start and think about it, and start as basically as you can. Sandwiches, wraps, toasted sandwiches, eggs on toast, stir fry. Start as basic as you can. The more basic the foods and the meals that you have, the easier it's going to be to track. So I just say start basically, but make sure that they're foods that you enjoy. Eat foods you enjoy. Don't look at foods as fattening foods. Don't look at them as diet foods. Just include all of the foods that you like. McDonald's, if you eat McDonald's every day, only McDonald's every day, and you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose fat. Does that make it a diet food? No, it doesn't. Anything can be a diet food or a fat loss food as long as it's within a deficit. So just include what you like. You can make certain foods low calorie. There are so many different recipes that you can find online at the moment. Pizzas you can do on like low calorie tortillas with yogurt on top. Pizza sauce has nothing in it. Ham, protein, whatever you want to put, some pineapple. You can make things low calorie. So just make sure just do some research and find some things basically that look appealing. Make sure that they look interesting to you. You don't want to get to your meal and think, oh my gosh, this looks boring. And then you're looking at every single food around you other than what you're meant to be eating, because everything else looks more appetizing than what you've just prepared. So make sure it's going to be something that you are going to enjoy. I actually think it's more important to include foods that are tasty in a deficit than when you're in maintenance and you're in a fed state. When you're in a deficit, you're going to be looking for food because you're underfed. So if your foods that you're including are enjoyable and you're looking forward to them, it's going to make it way easier to stick to than if they're like foods that you would not usually eat, but they're diet foods. So definitely include foods you enjoy. Pre-plan some treats. Make sure you have treats included. Food, as I said, like if you crave things after dinner, carbs, sweets after dinner, include some ice cream, include some yogurt or chocolate or whatever. Just pre-plan it and don't deprive yourself. If you are completely removing certain foods from your diet while you're in this deficit, you're going to come unstuck when you eventually eat these foods again. It's just how it's going to go. You're going to overdo it probably on those foods. Don't leave anything out. Try to find a way to include these foods in moderation, even if it's just once a week. One thing I do want to cover here, I'm just going to check my microphone's still on. Yep, we're still on. Learning, see? One thing I want to include here is that if you do find deficits really hard to stick to because you're a social person, for example, you enjoy wine on the weekends, you're out Fridays and Saturdays every week, what you can do, this is a bit more of an advanced technique, and I want to make sure that you have your basic tracking under control before you try this. What you can do, for example, Friday and Saturday are your social days. Sunday through to Thursday, you can have slightly lower calories, and Saturday and Sunday, you can have slightly higher calories. How do you do that? So say your deficit is 1,500 a day. You go 1,500 times 7, that is your weekly calorie allotment. So Sunday till Thursday, let's go a little bit lower, say 1,300 a day. And then Saturday and Sunday, you can have a little bit more at 2,000 a day. The only issue, and it will still add up to the same weekly deficit. The only issue that you might come up with this is on those Saturday and Sunday, you could overdo it. You need to make sure you still show restraint, you still plan, and you still make sure you stick to your deficit on those days. Otherwise, you're going to completely blow it and you're going to be in this deficit even longer, and you're going to wonder why it's not working for you. So you want to make sure that on those higher calorie days, you don't take advantage of them. Also, the other days, the other 5 days, you're on lower calories and it can be really hard to stick to. So it might not be worth it. But it is something to consider, and it is a technique that some people use that makes it more bearable for them. Next thing I'm going to talk about is some troubleshooting techniques.